Hi, I'm Jannah.
And I'm Nalita.
And
And
we're
we're
not
not crazy.
crazy. This is a podcast, by the way, mother daughter duo, where we dive into mental health and wellness and focus on neurodivergence. So, what is neurodivergence? That's what we're going to get into.
Well, I'm so glad you asked, John. Um, but neurodivergence, just as a definition, is having or related to a neurological disorder or condition, which impacts the way the brain processes information, and it's also is exhibiting characteristics of variations of what would be considered typical behaviors and things like that. So
Okay.
it's like the opposite. So what's quote unquote normal, typical, we are neuro. No, no. Yeah,
We're
neurodiverse.
neurodiverse
Yeah.
So
compared
being
to somebody who.
Just something to note for the listeners: neurodivergent is not a medical term.
right. It is
Just so
something they've made an umbrella term.
it's what it says is it's not a medical term, but
Right.
rather a way to describe people without using the terms normal or abnormal.
Yes. Very good. I like that.
Okay, I like that.
I like that.
I'm pretty abnormal.
And then some examples of what conditions are considered.
I want to
What?
talk about is let's start off with what our experience in it and why we're so passionate about this.
Well, yeah, we could start with that because there are lots of things, but I think we're very focused on a couple of areas: autism and ADHD. However, there are other ones that we know, like there's bipolar disorder, OCD, dyslexia, dyscalculia. I have a
Dyscalculia.
dyscalculia, OCD, which is
OCD,
obsessive
Tourette
compulsive
syndrome.
Tourette, all of those things. But in specific to our experience and our family's experience, it is definitely ADHD and autism. So for us, I think in a knowledge sense, it came from knowing a family member who was diagnosed ADHD as a young person. And as they grew up, they also were diagnosed with autism, which I kind of knew because it was related to something. And we talked about it. It was
Asperger's.
right. But remember, it was a
Don't laugh.
it was a contestant on America's Next Top Model,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she described that. So when this family member of ours was getting older, things were like, there's something happening
Different.
here.
Something different.
And over time, it we kind of started saying it like, I think it's that. And then eventually they were diagnosed and it was that. That is now Asperger's
ASD.
is now part of ASD, which is aut- autism spectrum disorder. So it's a variant spectrum. So
Mhm.
that's how we get there. Now for me, I have felt like I had some real issues throughout the better part of my life in terms of definitely focusing myself and being able to stay follow things through. You know, just so much random things going on in my mind that I would just keep like doing different things. And that goes for interests, that goes for jobs,
Yeah.
all kinds of things. And then, fast forward it when things got to a certain point and life changes because I'm like older. I got
Mhm.
my kids are grown. So I don't have the same kind of things to lead me through life and make me have to do things.
Mhm.
So now it's like, oh, I have all this free time and I have no idea how to do anything with it, but I'm anxious about it because I'm not getting things done.
Yeah.
So, long story short, about a year and a half ago, I thought I was just going to lose it completely and called my doctor, described it. She referred me. And, long story short, and I say long story short because we're going to do so many subtopics to cover things and
Yes.
we'll divulge more at that time. I was diagnosed at 55 years old with ADHD, and it just was telling and made things make a lot more sense. So that
Yeah,
was
when you
the
revealed it to me, I was
Mhm,
just like,
it makes sense.
that's pretty dead
Well,
on, actually.
also, and I knew someone else older than me who was he was a family member as well, who was diagnosed a couple of years before that, who kept on telling me, yeah, you need to get, and I'm
And
like,
it's funny because when people think of ADHD, they always think about children. And when I was
absolutely.
mentioning it to a psychiatrist that I was seeing,
Yeah.
and he was just like, you can't get diagnosed that
Yeah. Like you're too
at that
old.
age. He's like, it's not possible, basically.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, very much possible.
Yeah. You told him your mom had been diagnosed, and he was like, that's not that doesn't really happen. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But
crazy.
this is a part of the bias, and why certain people are diagnosed before others, and a lot of factors are, of
Right.
course, one being female, it shows differently being a female than being a male.
Yep.
And then, also being a person
Cultural.
of color, being
Mhm.
a person of color, it looks a little
Yeah.
different to others. It doesn't seem like people like us
Yeah.
maybe suffer
And then
from
there's the
these kind of
masking
things.
part. But again, these are all subtopics that we are going to get in at later times, but just to introduce so you understand where it comes from. And it's been a challenge understanding ourselves and things like that. And we know that other people experience this. We are not professionals. We are just talking about it because we need to talk about it more. Plus, it's really hard to find something for people of color. That's another thing.
Yeah.
I follow a lot of pages that are awesome, but it's very few where the content is focused toward people of color, and I will say Black people in particular, because we do have a unique experience in this country and so
Definitely.
many things. So we just think that's important. But just to put that out there, and for you, what is no your experience besides through me and the others? What is it
Um,
that's brought you to this?
well, definitely. I mean, things were brought to my attention, of course, as I was younger, growing up. When you're called different, and something wrong with that child,
Nothing
and,
wrong with that
and
girl.
and people I always knew there was something felt off. Like, why can I not
Connect.
connect with people the way other people are? I'm like, I can do this. And then, also my well, being diagnosed with a few different things.
Which is another common thing that happens to women.
Yeah, with
And
depression, anxiety, and things like that. And that, of course, those are kind of like side effects of
the bigger picture.
what's
Yeah.
the actual rooted problem
Right.
is.
Well,
And
actually, what it is what they call a comorbidity, which means it's something that can go alongside it.
yeah.
So it's like with ADHD, I have anxiety, but it's
Mhm.
due to the ADHD. It's not
Yeah.
generalized anxiety.
The overstimulation,
Right.
that's something a lot of neurodivergent people experience, is feeling overstimulated.
Right.
That's specific, like with ADHD and
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 autism.
ASD
Yeah,
as well,
absolutely.
like when there's too many noises and things like that. And
Right.
it's like, I always felt these things, but I was like, all right, especially it's the masking thing, because my thing was, everybody else pushes through these feelings, I guess.
Right.
And that's what I thought. Everybody felt the way I felt. They just, they know how to push through
Right.
certain things. But that's not necessarily the case, because some people move a lot differently and be like, I'm not bothered by this. Why is that
Right.
bothering you so much? And it's
Right.
like, I can't explain.
Right.
I
And then
can't
we can
explain.
also point out at this time, you are not yet diagnosed.
Mhm.
And it's also because, just like that little experience you just gave us a snippet of with that particular psychiatrist who
Mhm.
was like, yeah, there's no way.
A lot of non-believers, and it's funny because I'd be like, certain things I experienced, and I would speak to like people when I was a teenager and be like, nah, I experienced anxiety. And then somebody who has an actual diagnosis for something say, no, you don't really experience anxiety. And it's
Right.
like, oh, all right.
Okay. Yeah.
Guess I don't.
I don't know what this is, but yeah, no, exactly.
Maybe
And
I'm not.
so it just speaks to a larger problem in the industry where it comes to people,
What
and
it looks
especially
like.
adults and especially women,
Mhm.
getting these diagnoses, because
What?
psychiatrists are,
Diagnoses?
that's the plural. I don't know if you know that. Yeah,
I have been calling it diagnoses.
Me too. I'm about to say diagnosis.
Diagnose.
right. No, it is diagnoses. But anyway, the community at large, it's getting better, but it's still difficult for a lot of people to uh get looked at seriously for it. And then they want to go through, well, we need to check this first. Let's do the anxiety. Well, let's check for depression and let's go through this.
I've had
And
to
so
start
many
over
women,
many
especially,
times, going to the doctor. Well, it's been a while, so let me just start you on this fluoxetine, and it's always that, which I can't say that it's
which is
not
Prozac.
helpful.
So for those who don't know,
That's an antidepressant,
yeah,
which that's what comes with neurodiversity. A lot of times is
anxiety and
feelings of
depression.
depression and anxiety, and so that's where they always start from, kind
Right.
of phase one. Let's cover this part. You say you're feeling this and this and it's too much for you.
Right.
Let's get you on
Let's
those
make sure
antidepressants.
that's not your main problem before we get to this.
It's like that's a
Yeah.
big problem, but it's not the main problem. Not, and I realize that because I've taken it so many times, and I'm like,
Right.
it's helpful in certain ways. Definitely,
Right.
I
Right.
can't knock
Well,
it.
because the anxiety is a thing, but it doesn't mean that it's the main thing. There's
Yeah,
some other core issues that would be
yeah.
helpful to be getting the treatment that you need for
Yeah,
that.
like
So
different skills and things like that are very important too. Like medication, although it can be very important for a lot of people and helpful
right.
in certain times of life, actually having coping skills and learning yourself
Strategies.
yeah, strategies,
Yes.
learning like, okay, this made me feel this way. Why does it make me feel that
Right.
way? And that's the questions that we've been asking each other for the last few years, because it's helping us to figure out
Yeah.
why we react the way we do to certain things,
Absolutely.
like how when we get overstimulated, now we want to explode, and
Right.
and everybody, when one of us explodes, it's like we're looking at each other like, what the heck is wrong with you?
Right. We go through it. It goes back and forth. But so that's pretty much in a nutshell why we're here, besides, you know, to help bring it out more and in our community, but also because we want feedback and we're trying to learn because we are not professionals. Once again,
No.
we're just affected. So we're going to be letting you know. I mean, we're letting you know now. Of course, you're welcome. Feedback, any information, any questions. We are just open and welcome to it. But so now we want to move on and kind of just at least give some general understanding of the two main focuses for us, which is ADHD and autism. So you want to go ahead and let's start with the autism and kind of
Okay,
get
what we
that
have
out there.
here, so ASD, or autism spectrum disorder, is defined as a complex lifelong developmental condition, and it typically appears during the early childhood stages, and it can impact social skills and communication and self-regulation and how you feel, and all your emotions and things like that. And it's funny because even hearing that definition before, like, because when our family member had got diagnosed, it was just like, okay, but what does that mean?
Right. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And one thing we noticed, and the biggest thing, and it's about communication, and that is applicable to both nonverbal, because there are people who are nonverbal, and we do have children in our family that are ASD nonverbal, and then we of course have the other side of the spectrum, or whatever the range of it is, where there's verbal, the ability to speak and all of that, and still have a struggle with that communicating and socializing with that communication.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal.
Yeah. Well, some of the signs here, which you kind of went over a little bit, social communication. So a part of it is like difficulty with eye contact, which not every single person
No,
with ASD
or even a degree
experiences.
of it. Not everyone is like, it's not as hard or bad for some others. It depends on the person.
Yeah.
But it's difficult for me sometimes,
Yeah.
and I didn't even really realize that I can do
And
it
that's
when
another
I
thing
think I need to.
I've read up on a lot, and when I've watched a lot of videos, there are a lot of similar kind of effects like that, between
Oh, the
ASD and
overlap.
ADHD.
Yes,
And it's
absolutely.
like, although they have a lot of similar characteristics and stuff like that, they're not the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And not just that, but there are people before the 2013 edition of the DSM, as we talk about. That's the diagnostic manual that they use to diagnose these disorders. Um, they used to say if you had one, you could not have the other. Now that changed as of that last update, and they know that people can have both autism and ADHD, because how can you say you can't have it? It just, it's crazy.
That's
Yeah,
ADHD, right?
as of now, we are up to the DSM-5, which is the 5th
Yeah.
edition.
Absolutely. And that's the one that, so it allows it now. They can they can diagnose with both.
So things about, let's see, let's just go over other, see, repetitive behaviors. That's another sign of ASD, you know, but also that overlaps with OCD, over compulsive disorder as well. There's a lot of people with ASD that I see experience symptoms of OCD as well. Intense interests, you love these specific things, you want to talk about them, you're passionate. And then oftentimes with people like us, and the same thing with ADHD people as well, you get passionate about your topic and people, somebody else is on the other end like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I didn't know any of that.
Absolutely.
Moving on. So delayed development, that can be with language or your
Right.
movement.
So it's specifically like, again, nonverbal. I have a grandchild, two actually, that are nonverbal. And so, and where those repetitive behaviors come in, one of them, she's, you know, does a
Moves,
thing like
rocks.
this, and you know, it's just something. And it's like with ADHD, there's more of stemming. There's stemming can be any number of things. You know, I used to
For
rock
my
my
nephew,
leg,
for
or
my nephew, he plays video games, of course, and he can't sit down for 2 seconds. He's moving around, he's fiddling, he's going like this. I mean, he can get very hyper focused, but then
oh yeah, absolutely,
he's all doing a whole bunch of stuff,
yeah,
making noises, or the vocal stimming, where he's kind of does like a little and
yes.
screams out loud.
Oh my
And
gosh, yes.
but
Drives me crazy, but yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, and then, you know, moving on, and there's unusual behaviors in terms of, you know, normal things like eating and sleeping habits, or even reactions to light. And that other uh person in our family that we were talking about, that was one thing, that was a thing that kind of would be, because it would drive me nuts about, like, why are you in the dark, why are you, you know. And so yeah, it's a lot of different things. And they also, just like you will find with ADHD, executive functions are another big things. And executive functions, just so, again, because we're going to talk so much more in depth about certain things, but this is the things that help us operate in life. Time management, organization,
Planning, problem solving,
what's this
time
really big
management.
one? Look, and I'm doing like this, so I know that you're gonna say it's something memory.
Oh, working memory.
Working memory.
That's the
As I'm
working,
trying to remember
that's the
working
issue
memory.
right there.
It's a huge interest. Huge issue, because I think I thought it was short-term memory, which is not. So working memory is basically, in a very layman's way, how much information you can maintain and hold while using it and keeping other information, so that it flows, so it doesn't fall out.
So,
I don't know how to say
as
it
an
better right now.
example, as an example, like, let's say I were to go to the kitchen for a specific something.
Yeah.
Which happens quite often. I'm gonna walk in there and I'll be like, why did I come here?
Right. Or something stops you on the way.
Or yeah, that too. That too.
And then you're all somewhere else, and then it's like, I was doing something else, you know, because it's like that went away because this other thing kind of came up in that prominent spot. So there's some more technical stuff about that, and we are going to try to do better research so we can explain it. But again, this is the general episode. So we're so just so you understand what it is. And then, so there's something about what the DSM-5 has to say about, you know, what the requirements are or criteria.
Yes. So it requires, I guess, persistent deficits in social communication and social interaction across multiple contexts. So, whether that be social, like
Right.
friendships or relationships and things like that,
Or school,
school
work.
and work as well. And it's issues with understanding cues and societal expectations as well.
Right.
That comes with it, where something as simple as a conversation can go not as planned.
Go left.
Can go
Right.
left, like how we got to keep ourselves on track. That's why we have a producer guy over here, and
He
he's to help us
tries.
stay on track. See, look, there he goes doing his signals. This one gives me anxiety. See, I thought I could handle it.
She's like, ah.
But
But
I did it so slow.
you did. But I think the thing is, with the criteria is saying that not just having these things sometimes, what it means is it has to affect you in just about every aspect of life. The social, the important things like school and work, that you still have difficulty in communication and understanding, so that your relationships, whether they be business or personal, can flow well. And that can be challenging.
So it has nothing to do with whether you're smart
Oh,
or
no.
not, or
Intelligence
intelligent or
has nothing
not.
to do with it.
Because we all have our things where it's like wow, these sometimes are moments where it's like, wow, how did you know that?
Yeah.
And then
People start
other
looking at you like,
things-
oh,
and then other things,
you're not dumb at all. Yeah.
right. You get that look a lot, but a lot of that stuff, it could come off as if you're like, what's wrong with that child?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But similar to ASD, ADHD is definitely debilitating in that way with what the heck did we call it? The executive function.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Challenges,
For sure.
problems with memory and things
Right.
like that. But you can remember some wild out thing that nobody else remembered,
Yes.
like 5
Useless
months ago.
type stuff. I say I have so much useless information in my head. It's amazing. And I will come up with something and people are looking at me like, why do you even know this? And I'm like, I don't even know why I even know this, but for some reason it's stuck in my head. And then I have to share.
So yeah, right.
But listen, in terms of ADHD, just in the technical sense, so ADHD, which is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is a neurological disorder that impacts the parts of the brain that help us plan, focus, and execute tasks. So, that sounds really simple, because anybody can say, well, everybody has problems with this, everybody has problems with that, but everybody does not constantly, throughout every part of everything they do, to the point that it is in every aspect of my life, personal or otherwise. That's what makes it the biggest deal. So symptom wise, ADHD includes inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. ADHD is considered a chronic and debilitating disorder. I can speak for that. And is known to impact the individual in many aspects of their lives, including academic, professional achievements, interpersonal relationships, and daily functioning. And it can lead to poor self-esteem and social function in children and adults. And then, of course, as adults, we may experience really poor self-worth and emotional dysregulation, which is huge. And that's not
why
even.
Can't I get this? Because everybody who thinks that this is so easy, why can't you focus in? Why can't you just
Oh,
do
no,
this?
no. Well, how about yourself saying that? Oh, I know this is easy. I should be able to do this.
We tell ourselves that because we look at everyone else around us. Not everybody else has those struggles and understand those struggles like on a daily basis, the way we do.
Exactly.
So around, when you look around you like that and everybody else seems like they're getting it, why am I not getting it?
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And then people can feed that, of course, and then you end up beating yourself up because it's like, I should be able to get this.
Yeah.
I've done this before. Kind of
right,
thing.
right.
And then sometimes you can't gather the focus the same way you have before for something.
There are any number of reasons. And again, we're going to get into so much of it more detailed wise. But the one thing to know is, at this point, an estimated amount of estimated Anyway,
Estimated.
8.4% of children and 2.5% of adults have ADHD. Sounds small, but when you think about, I don't know, billions of people, it's still a lot of people.
Oh yeah.
So it's like it's a lot of people who are affected, and it is more commonly diagnosed among boys than girls, given the differences in how the symptoms present, like you had spoken about earlier. But it doesn't mean that there are more boys than girls that are actually
and
affected.
I've been seeing more contents, about ADHD and autism, and nowadays because people are getting more informed and
Mhm.
kind of looking
Yeah.
into things for themselves and getting self help through therapy and
Right.
psychiatry and things like that.
Right.
I believe that number it'll probably rise. It's just these are the people who get diagnosed in these
Right.
percentages,
Right. Oh,
and
absolutely.
but there's a lot of people that
That's why it's
gone their whole
lower.
entire life, like
Yep.
you went your whole entire life. The signs are there.
Right.
When you said that, I was just like, well, dang, yeah, it should
Totally
have been
makes
a long
sense,
time
right?
ago.
But and then in terms of the criteria related to the DSM-5 with ADHD, the symptoms, like the symptoms of inattentiveness and impulsivity and hyperactivity, have to have persisted for at least 6 months when the diagnosis process, but it has to have started from by the time you're 12 years old for it to be considered that. And it has to negatively impact your life with consistency. So there's so many things that you go through, in
Well,
being
it's like
diagnosed with
the
that.
classic the being the kid who talks too much in class and things like that. Talks
Mhm.
to if you got
Who is
that,
that? No.
that might be a possible symptom.
It is no, it's an actual symptom, but it can't be that alone.
No,
And that's the
not
right,
that alone.
right,
There's several things, of
right.
course, but there's a lot of people that gone their whole life had trouble in school for things like that and being
Yes.
disruptive, supposedly when
Yep.
they're having a hard time keeping themselves
Under wraps.
yeah, and
For
that's
lack of a better term.
so a lot of kids, I think, growing up, and I've seen it too myself. I've seen the quote unquote hyperactive
Mhm.
kid and get in trouble in class, and I'm like, and in my mind, I'm thinking, man, he just can't control himself. Like I get it,
He just keep doing it. Why doesn't he stop himself? Yeah.
But that's exactly the way it looks. You growing up as kids, if you weren't diagnosed, you look like you were misbehaving.
Yeah. Bad
Or
kids.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're
And
not.
I would say that, in because what we've discovered, so to speak, and I say that lightly, because I don't want to get into the debate about being diagnosed and not diagnosed. But what I do know from a standpoint of what I have read and understand, it is very heritable, both ADHD and autism. So it would stand to reason what I discovered and realized that pretty much I didn't even think that you were. We leaned more toward the autism thing, but I realized that you also have traits that made me see that ADHD definitely is something that it can.
I'm
That is,
definitely
yeah.
impulsive.
But my other 3 children, which one of them is our illustrious producer,
Ayo.
definitely also a full blown ADHD. I used to laugh because I tell people me and this was our producer and his older brother. Those are my first 2 kids. First
The
of all,
best kids, by the way.
yeah,
Sure.
we grew up together. And when I say we grew up together, I can remember dancing in our little living room, me and these 2 little boys, like little spasmodic kids. And I was right with them. We were always like that. And they would drive me crazy, but I was right there. So we were like high energy just as a whole. And again, it makes sense. I wish I would have known for their sake too. I wish I would have understood that about me because it just would have been so much more helpful to them, because this is a struggle, when you don't know what's going on and how to operate or at least
When you
strategize to
don't
help
see
yourself.
what the issue is,
Right.
it's even
You just know it
harder.
is one.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
even harder. But like looking at the content online and stuff like that, and I'm not saying diagnose yourself by looking at
No,
videos,
but it has
but definitely
exposed it.
my eyes have been open to certain things about myself because I'm like, dang, I'm like, why? Like I follow somebody on Instagram and it's been described way better than than other people, things that I've
Yeah.
experienced and that I've felt. And I'm like, wow, this is this is a real thing, you know, and it really opened my eyes to want to learn more about myself and get to know what this is.
Yeah.
So even if, you know, you don't have a diagnosis, it doesn't mean you can't get
Right.
help through
Absolutely.
learning your what habits
Information.
and
Yeah.
tendencies and characteristics that you share, you
Right.
know, with people that
And more
have these.
importantly, or not more importantly, or as importantly, learning things that strategies that might be able to help you. So, with that being said, again, we might have run a little bit longer than we wanted to this
A
time
little
because,
bit.
again, with this general, just putting it out there what we're doing, but we got so many subtopics to cover that
Yes.
we will be doing that. But in the meantime, I want to reiterate, we are not medical professionals, so we definitely don't have all the answers, and we are open for so many more pieces of information and all of that. So if you believe that you have any symptoms or even sounds like it in videos you've seen, seek professional help because you will be. If you get a diagnosis, it's not about medication because that can be helpful, but it's about knowing. And I'm telling you, don't know what knowing does for you. And that's why she's in that process trying to get that diagnosis. So we do have information and we'll go ahead and add it in our little notes there, but there's information with ADHD. You've got CHAD, which is children and adults with ADHD. Understood, which is what is it, a video magazine, I think I would call it. Some of the episodes, like the thing I watch, ADHD Aha, that comes from Understood, but they have different things, really good content. Attitude magazine, Additude. That's what. So anyway, and then for autism, there's Autism Speaks, which I think is an organization that's been around a really long time, and then Autism Society. Well, maybe we'll talk about it later, but there's there's so much controversy in all of these things with depending on who you ask. But at the end of at the whole thing is that we hope that even if it's just a few people that find out that they may need to get some direction, that would be awesome. And again, we're in this together. And if you have any feedback or even subtopics that you're interested in, please let us know in the comments, and hope you have in mind our little ramble rants. And again, we're working on that.
We're here not only to try and share some information, but help us out. Anything we missed or you want to hear, let us know in comments, and we'll try and talk about it.
Yeah. And we'll probably see you in a couple of weeks. We could say next week, but it probably won't be. So we'll see what we'll do. But this was a lot to get together, to believe it or not. But we're determined to stay focused on it. So thank you guys for your time, and we hope you come back.
And as a reminder,
we're not crazy.